I'm going to turn it over to Jamie because she is going to give us a deep dive into the actual frameworks themselves.
Thank you, Sarah. You'll notice as we go through this presentation today, we've got these little sections where we stop and ask for questions. We are intentionally designing these new Tech Talk Season 3 talks to where we can chunk them up and place them onto a web page so that you are not scrubbing through 50 minutes of information. So you'll see those embedded throughout our talk today, and then we will chunk those out for you on the Bridging Minds and Machines. Okay, so what I want to do is spend a little bit of time socializing the structure of this framework or these frameworks so that you can understand clearly what you are looking at. I'm going to share my screen, and then I'm going to jump over to one of the actual frameworks. These frameworks are embedded on our Bridging Minds and Machines site, and we will pass that information along to you and just a little further along in our talk today. So as Sarah mentioned, these frameworks are informed by EDUCAUSE and UNESCO, along with being audited against the World Economic Forum. So if we look at the student AI literacy framework, we need to cover two different areas, and we need the academic side of it and we need the cultural side of it. And so EDUCAUSE is really, really strong on their academic development of AI literacy frameworks. UNESCO is very good on their cultural side. So we found that a very good combination is to have both of those frameworks inform the student AI literacy framework. With the staff framework, where we're focusing a lot on productivity, we wanted to tap into the World Economic Forum because that is their strength. So all of this is just to say that we are constantly scanning the landscape to look at what these really strong organizations out there within these spaces are doing and saying and determining our AI literacies for stakeholders. And so those different models informed what we are doing. The difference to me and to this team in just saying, okay, let's just link to EDUCAUSE or let's just link to UNESCO. We take that information and we think about you, our stakeholders, within this world that we work in and live in, which is TBR. So this is in-house. That's where we feel like it brings a lot of value. And we're going to talk about how we're going to scaffold these frameworks a little later on in our conversation, which is going to get us more in line with what we do within our world of TBR. So what you're going to see when you come into these frameworks is you'll see a brief introduction. This exists on every single framework that we are building. We've got a purpose of this framework. And so you can take this information. I'm not going to read it to you. You can come back and visit with it. How this framework is intended to be used. So as Sarah mentioned, it's a guide. It's a reference. It's a tool. It gives us consistency, shared language. We are working towards outcomes. And so being able to speak that language across the system is really important. It's tough enough to do it across an institution, but when we look at having 34 institutions within a system, then it becomes a much larger task. And so having these consistent frameworks to work from are a great launch point, foundational piece to this model. What the framework is not, as Sarah mentioned, a checklist, a mandate, a compliance document, something that overrules any policy. That is not the intended use of these. The student framework is intentionally also designed for faculty use. So Sarah mentioned it's student use. So students could take a look at this thing and see what are the foundational competencies, regardless of major, regardless of discipline, regardless of program, that all students should know and be able to do successfully in an AI era. Faculty can use this framework to start to design AI-enabled activities and assessments. So we'll talk about that a little later on. There's an academic example that's going to be shared in this demonstration. So faculty members, you can use this framework. Go in here, look at the competency statements. We'll take a look at the design of it in just a moment. And use these competency statements to design assessments and activities. Staff, Same thing for you. You're going to look at these competency statements and say, what can I be doing in my job? How do I embed this competency within my specific role and context? So just because it says student doesn't mean that it's only for student consumption. Again, it's for faculty consumption as well, or learning supports consumption. We want to, in the AI era, you're going to hear the AI Collaborative talk a lot about focusing on process, not simply outputs. We are all way too familiar with students inappropriately using AI tools to over-rely and generate homework. One of the most effective ways to circumvent that from happening and to protect a student's agency in learning is to look at the entire process that a student goes through, the learning process, the producing of the assessment process, the producing of the assignment process. So we have checkpoints along the way, and we've got some templates that we'll share, a template that we'll share with you on this. In looking at and providing feedback, engaging that entire learning process, not just that a student's going to generate an outline and then they're going to go generate their citations, and then they're going to generate a 3-paragraph essay for you and turn that in. So we want to make sure that we're documenting the process along the way. Transparency and disclosure guidance, that's very important in the age of AI. So that students understand why they're being asked to use AI tools, or if they're being forbidden from using AI tools. That also bleeds over into the workflow part of it, right? So what are the ways we can use these tools? What are the ways we should not be using these tools? These frameworks provide boundaries and guardrails, again, going back to the guidelines. One of the biggest challenges I feel like for this system is going to be making sure students have equal opportunity to interact with these tools across our state. That becomes a challenge when you're looking at multi-institutional uses of AI tools. So part of this, again, these frameworks, is to get us into a space where we're using or we're looking at consistent competencies across the uses of AI, how we can plug those in and be consistent in our language so that students across the state are getting the opportunities to master these skills. These frameworks are a living document. They will be iterated upon and changed as the innovation rolls out in front of us. Everything right now seems like it's written in pencil, right? And so you will see iterations of these. We encourage you to take these foundational frameworks and feel free to edit them, play with them, make them your own. So let's take a look at what lives inside of one of these frameworks. So first thing you're going to see are competency.
Jamie,
yes.
Are you ready for me to stop sharing the PowerPoint?
Yes, I thought that I had my screen shared. Am I not? Okay.
No.
Okay, here we go. Sorry. Okay, so at the beginning, you'll see all of that information that I just covered for you, and I thought you were looking at my screen, so I apologize. So all of that's at the very beginning. So let's take a look at what is exactly within a framework that you are looking at. You're going to see a competency domain. So think about that as a bucket. So it's a category of skills, knowledge, abilities that students and faculty and staff need to know and be able to do. That is demonstrated. So that is why competency-based principles are so effective in this space, because when you're using innovations and technology, you've got to walk the walk, right? You can't just simply talk the talk. So we focus very deeply on performance-based types of activities and assessments. You're going to see a competency statement. So these are students will be able to apply, synthesize, edit, demonstrate, all of those kinds of things. So you'll see those statements. You're going to see levels of applied use, and we've broken those out for beginner, intermediate, and advanced. So what does it look like when a student's doing a particular competency statement and they're at the beginning levels? What do I see when I'm observing that? What are they doing at the intermediate level? What is it I see when they are performing that task? And advanced, of course. We have also mapped each competency statement to Bloom's taxonomy. This is for the student framework at this point only. The staff does not need to be mapped to Bloom's. They are focused on productivity. So you'll see those assessment keywords in just a moment. And then we also map those over to the Gen Ed core competencies. So let's get in here and take a look at what we have. So the very first domain is up here in the upper left-hand corner. It's AI fundamentals. Bear in mind, as we look at this, this is for students across disciplines. Doesn't matter. So this is a foundational set of competencies that students should know and be able to do as they prepare themselves and we prepare them for the AI workforce. So we're going to see that this big bucket is AI fundamentals. So underneath AI fundamentals, we've got 5 different competency statements. You're going to see that each one of these competency statements always begins with an observable and measurable action verb. So you will never see something in there like recognize. Because if I look at a student and they're demonstrating something for me, how do I know if they recognize it or not? It's not measurable. So you're going to see things like describe, distinguish, explain, discuss, evaluate. So every single competency statement is going to start with observable, measurable verbs. And so if I shut my eyes, I should be able to see what a student is doing. So for the first one, describe what artificial intelligence is and where it appears in daily life. So this is my competency statement. So I could use this statement to then build an activity off of it. So at the beginning level, I see that a student can identify AI as a technology. They see it as a tool that performs tasks that require human thinking. So they're just simply identifying it. At the intermediate level, they're starting to explain things to me. So I can see that progression and growth and learning. And at the advanced level, they're explaining AI functionality and distinguish between types of AI. So you will see the progression in learning when you look at these different levels. In the column to the right, we have plugged in for you various Bloom's terms that you can then use to generate an assessment or an activity. And then the following final column, you'll see the specific Gen Ed, the TBR Gen Ed core competencies that this competency statement maps over to. So does everybody, are we clear on that? So we're looking at the domain, big bucket, 5 competencies, the levels of progression and learning, which are performance indicators, the map to Bloom, and then the tie into the Gen Ed core. So on the student model, what you're going to see, AI fundamentals is a big bucket. Ethics and responsible use, again, a big bucket. Very same layout that we are following. And all these competency statements fit in with ethics and responsible use. The next one, critical evaluation. Again, we're following the very same thing, 5 competencies underneath critical evaluation. So again, those observable, measurable verbs. And then we have strategic use. This is getting into, it's not really discipline specific, although they could be scaffolded to discipline specific, but they're still pretty general. Strategic uses. And then lastly, we have workforce alignment. So if I'm doing activities in my course where students are doing research or learning how to map AI skills to workforce. Okay, I'm going to just quickly jump over to this window. Let me just, let's see. Let me just stop there. Any questions about that? So again, what the difference is, you're going to see when you get to the staff one. You're going to see the buckets, the domains, the competency statements, the levels of learning progression, performance indicators. You will not see Bloom's, but you will see a map to the Gen Ed core competencies. Okay, the domains for the staff are AI fundamentals, ethics and responsible use, critical evaluation, and workforce alignment. Okay, I'm going to show you really quickly before we move on where these live. And the team's going to jump and give you a link to this later. But if you look under the TBR AI literacy frameworks, you're going to see the framework for students here, the framework for staff here. I mentioned to you that there are templates that you can use. This is one for a course activity. Feel free to take that and make that your own. Okay, let me go back to the presentation. Okay, so what counts as evidence of AI literacy? So when we're looking at how do we think about AI literacy? And we often have conversations, and you hear people say digital natives know how to use these AI tools, not effectively. Many times they do not. So explanations of AI choices, not that you're simply making those choices, but you can explain what you are, why you're choosing and what you're choosing. Reflections or limitations of bias. So we understand that these systems produce bias. We understand how to think about those biases, how to identify those biases, how to work beyond those biases. We are always verifying and cross-checking and fact-checking. And that's something that we do continuously. We've got multiple sources that we check to make sure the information is accurate that we're getting. And a comparison of AI-assisted and independent work. These systems have a voice, right? And the more you use them, the more you are able to identify that voice when it is used. And so we want to make sure that we remain central, we remain the human in the center, and that we are using these merely as tools. They are not replacing the humans, and they are not circumventing the human work. Again, templates are a great way to design these types of things that can be used in a course, across a department, across a division, across an institution, and that will help you save time and effort when you're doing these things. It also ensures consistency. Any questions about the structure of the framework or the frameworks? Again, staff is productivity. So when you look at that, you're going to say, okay, this is all workflow types of competencies. Academics, you'll see some workflow in there. But also, let me just say one quick thing, and then we're going to move on. These frameworks are not designed to be siloed from one another. So even if you're faculty, go to the staff one. If you're staff one, go to the academics. You'll find different pieces that you can take and modify and make your own.